Hello, today we are going to learn about the different teaching learning methods which we can use in EVS. Especially, we are going to focus on creative expressions. It is very important as teachers first, when we begin with the teaching learning methods, to understand the meaning of creative expressions. Whether it is drawing, painting, cutting, pasting or model making, sculpture, music or dance or theatre, all children love to be creative if they are given a chance. And the act of being creative brings with it so many benefits. Any expression by children with some novelty is creative expression. It is important to help nurture young children's creativity through a rich learning environment of visual and performing arts. Now, when you talk of visual and performing arts, for example, in the visual arts, we have painting, we have drawing, right? We have writing poems, and in the performing arts, we have puppetry, we have theatre, we can engage them in street theatre, we can engage them in role plays, we can engage them in mimes, we can engage them in mimicry, right? Now, even in the performing arts, we also have dance, we also have music, which are such powerful mediums for the vent of the creative talent of the children. Now, for example, we have writing as a form of creative expression. Students can be asked to create their own poetry with reference to poem on environment issues, songs. We can ask them to create jingles. We can ask them to create scripts of dramas. We can ask them to write stories or essays, and also they may compile collections of relevant materials from other sources. So, writing also gives them a creative outlet to their expression. This can be done by asking them to choose different issues from the environment, and then they can have their own picture compositions, their stories, their dramas, their role plays, or singing songs and jingles and creating awareness about the environment. For example, something like say no to crackers. We in Delhi especially know that because of the large scale awareness, and of course there was a legislation too in place, we really could join hands and curb the level of pollution post Diwali this year. Now, when we look at the creative expression, we have graphic arts. It includes drawing and painting, making collages or sculptures, taking photographs, designing posters and banners. We all at some time or the other, when we were students, have engaged in these activities, in some activity or the other, and we also remember the joy it brought into our life. As teachers, therefore, it is very important for us to engage our students in collage making or in sculpture making, or asking them to go and click photographs at any point of the day, and then you can, ask them to observe those photographs, and they can write a poem based on those photographs, or by seeing the environment in its natural form. They may be asked to design posters. They may ask to, write slogans on different aspects in writing, and then they may have a slogan on top, and here below they may have a poster depicting some theme of environmental conservation. And of course, they may be asked to design banners as well for their creative expression. Music, as we all know, has tremendous amount of therapeutic value. We listen to different kinds of songs, and there are songs which also have definite times at which they are heard. Children respond to songs that inspire and energize and link them to environmental messages. It is very important for us to understand that songs can be a very powerful medium to create environmental awareness. Feelings can be expressed very effectively through this powerful medium of songs. Whether it is environmental conservation, whether it is slogans which are sung in the form of songs, music is a very powerful medium of creative expression. And then we know that when you talk of activities, when you talk of performance, when you talk of hands-on activity, movement and dance, we all know the different mudras of dance, isn't it? Now, when you talk of these mudras, it is the non-verbal art. Often, it encourages students to express those thoughts and feelings which they do not like to say. There are many children who may not like to write. There are many children who may not like to sing. And there are many children who may not like to role play. Here is a form, maybe they would like to engage in performing arts. So, through a dance based on, for example, conservation of rivers, or a dance which talks of the conservation of the mountains, or a dance which talks of the Mother Earth, all these dance forms can be put together and expressions and feelings can be portrayed through the dance forms, different dance forms. Puppetry, as we all know, is also a very powerful medium where environmental messages can be transformed with the help of puppets. And for this, training and specific skills are required. We may engage our students in puppetry workshops, and I am sure each one of us, including the teachers and teacher educators, would enjoy being engaged in a puppetry workshop where we all engage and prepare finger puppets which can be used to narrate the different movements. For example, we have the Chipko movement which was there for, right, as a conservation movement. It is very, very important. We had Project Tiger. Through those finger puppets, we can demonstrate and we can, transform our immediate environment by strong environmental messages and foster conservation efforts. Now, let us look at, these are a few finger puppets by Sweet Paul, which I found on a website, sweetpaulmag.com. Now, these finger puppets, if you see, in the middle you have the North Pole and you have the penguins there. Through the finger puppets, by the movement of those fingers, you can easily elucidate so many concepts. And the visual mode is so powerful that through these finger puppets, you can teach them diverse amount of things by engaging them meaningfully and creatively. So, creative expressions in EVS is something which we all need to learn, and we need to have it in our pedagogy in the classroom. Creativity stimulates learning. You all have already learned that social constructivist theory is the premise of National Curriculum Framework 2005 and of the EVS curriculum. And when children are encouraged to think independently and creatively, they become more interested in discovering things for themselves. They are more open to new ideas and keen to work with others to explore ideas. That is, creativity stimulates learning. When you are encouraged to think independently, when you have no fear, and when you feel like creating something of your own, then comes the creative expression. And if you are trained for that with reference to making of puppets, or you have engaged in a number of experiences, the more rich your thought becomes. We also need to know that creativity in response to social, cultural and environmental issues is very, very important. Individuals all across the globe, if you see, whether it's Sundarlal Bahugna, whether it's Medha Patakarji, whether you have environmentalists all across the globe, people who have been talking about the environment, or you have individuals. They are individuals who have transformed society. Individuals can transform society if they learn to act together and generate new ideas. Younger citizens of a democratic world need to be groomed and supported to become citizens with problem-solving and critical thinking skills. As a teacher, your role is to unlock the creative potential of your young learners by creating different types of learning situations before the learners. The diversity of learning environments is very, very important, because these diverse learning environments cater to different learning styles of your students. And this is very important for us pedagogues to cater to the learning styles of our students, whether it's auditory, whether it's a visual, whether it's a kinesthetic, or whether it's all. It's important that we cater to it. Creativity also enhances our ability to manage change. Children need creativity to manage risk and cope with change and adversity. These are times where we live in places which are prone to earthquakes, which are prone to floods. As a teacher, it is important that you also teach them how to manage or cope with these changes, environmental changes, adversities such as environmental disasters. For example, an earthquake prevention drill, the precautions you should take in case, or the preventive measures you should take in case of an earthquake should be a part of the regular disaster management course. And also each one of us has to be trained with reference to taking care of natural and man-made disasters. As a teacher, it is your role to provide them with such opportunities by using techniques of creative expressions in your classroom. Creative expressions can be very useful in developing the affective domain, where you make the child learn how to respond, where you make the child learn how to receive information, and you cater to an environment where the child learns how to be receptive. A society where diversity is respected and plurality of thoughts and opinions is encouraged can be created only by citizens who are able to respond to new interactions, fresh connections and collaborations. Thus, the implications of education are very significant and phenomenal. We need to understand that diversity of thoughts and opinions needs to be encouraged in its spirit. Let us take an example of using creative expression for EVS. For example, to prepare a slipper stamp. Many things which we consider as beyond use, for example, worn out slippers, socks, plastic boxes, etc. could be useful to make different craft items. Based on children's creativity, for example, children use even old slippers to create rubber stamp through the following steps. Collect waste rubber slippers. Cut out the bottom of the slipper in the shape of a square or rectangle. Wash this piece clean thoroughly with detergent and water. Draw the outline of the mirror image of the letters or design you want. Then use a blade or knife very carefully, this has to be done under the supervision of the teacher, to first cut a groove along the outline. Then cut away the part outside the outline in such a way that the designed outline is slightly raised above the rest of the piece. Only the part to be used as the stamp should be raised. The rest should be cut out. Apply some colored ink, depending upon which color you want, to this raised part and the stamp on the required place. Now, these are something which the child will enjoy, creation of a rubber stamp, or you may make best out of waste. You can make paper mache out of the newspapers. Paper mache is a very important craft which you can engage students with, right? We can also engage them in activities. For example, you have cardboards they may which have no use to you, so they may make through that cardboard bits they may make pen holders, they may make folders, and so on and so forth. These are tips for facilitating creative expressions, and it is very, very important in environmental science to promote creative expression in small groups. This will help children overcome their inhibitions. There are many children, you must be finding, that children are not able to voice their opinions. They feel conscious in voicing their opinions. They feel fearful of talking in the class. So when you have these environments in small groups where children are put together and they work in groups, many children overcome these inhibitions. It is also very important to provide choices of creative expression, mediums such as visual arts, and apart from visual arts, creative dramatics. You can have role plays, you can have street theatre to create environmental awareness, you can have mimicry exercises, you can have mimes, and you can have so much of movement through music and dance. But it is very, very important that you expose all your students to all these different creative arts, whether it is the visual arts or whether they are the performing arts. It is important that children are exposed to these different art mediums, and environmental science being such a lively subject. You can engage them in painting, you can engage them in making slogans, you can engage them in making jingles, you can also engage them in making advertisements, you can engage them in non-verbal expression through different dance forms, right? You can engage them in writing poems on different aspects of the environment, and you can also engage them in making collages. But make sure when they make a collage, they use waste materials only, because children have a tendency to cut magazines, to cut whatever is handy, so that the collage becomes very clear. But it is important, because we are talking of environmental science and we ought to nurture values of conservation. Therefore, ask them to make collages which are best done by using waste materials. Creative expression, also engaging children in creative expressions, enables them to work or learn teamwork. Work in teams and learn teamwork, yet give individual attention to each child. Working in a team also is important, as in you learn different kinds of values such as, or attitudes such as fostering cooperation amongst the group members. It also builds self-confidence and creative thinking skills. Creative expression is the best medium, wherein when you praise a child, motivate a child with reference to his or her creative expression, the self-confidence of the child is nurtured and creative thinking skills are also nurtured. When you look at the creative piece of a child with reference to a poem or a story or a picture composition, definitely it goes a long way in nurturing the creative thinking skills of the child. But it is very, very important that all this creative expression takes place in an environment which is non-stressed. It should not be stressful for the child. It is non-competitive atmosphere in the class. We need to learn as teachers ourselves that it should be the spirit of cooperation, not competition, which nurtures creative expression. We have to create a fun-filled learning environment for all the children, which is very, very important. Now, there are some ideas, for example, poetry reading and writing. You can also, for example, you have the poem Warned by Sylvia Struts, which is on environment, where she warns you about the different perils of damaging your environment, which can be taken up in a poetry reading session. There can also be engagement with reference to poetry writing sessions. It is also important that you give children the necessary choices with reference to which creative expression would they like to engage in. I think it is very important for us to understand that we give choices to our children. We do not impose or force children with our own choices. They may make posters, they may make collages, they may make advertisements. Performing arts, like they may engage in dramas, plays, skits, right? And of course, model making. Each one of us at some time of the other have, played with those clay, isn't it? We play with clay, we make those small tiny models. We can also now, once they grow up, we can engage them in making two-dimensional or three-dimensional models, such that, three-dimensional models specifically, such that they learn the art of model making in groups, and they are also able to, understand the relevance of putting the different parts together with reference to a model. And of course, puppetry, a very important performing art, which can reach a large group of people, as it is a very powerful medium and a very lively medium to put your point across through puppets. When you talk of conservation, let us join hands to conserve using our creativity. For example, look at this recycled bag. I love recycled bag. This is a clip art which I took from Clip Arts Library, right? If you look at this bag, children can also be motivated to, make this recycled bag through a worn out cloth, or they can make it through a cardboard, and it has to be done, if they are small children, in adult supervision. Now, let us look at some slogans which have been put on these pictures drawn by students. The image source is shoutslogans.com. Dare to be a force of nature. That means, let us all stand together and become a force to reckon with in nature. That means a force which will stand up for conservation, a force which will stand up for preservation of natural resources. So, it immediately, when you have an image, when you have a picture, when you have a visual in front of you, it immediately attracts your attention. And when you have a slogan with it, that's even better. Let us look at the next one. Hug a tree with me. It reminds me of the Chipko movement, which was a movement specially started for the conservation efforts with reference to trees, right, to prevent the felling of trees, where the villagers of the village used to, hug the trees such that they prevent the felling of the trees. And this was a big conservation effort started by Sundarlal Bahuguna. So, hug a tree with me. Look at this picture and the smiling tree. It is very, very important. Through these visuals, we create the kind of impact for conservation of environment. Remember, trees are the lungs which we ought to preserve at all cost for our own sustenance. Let us look at the next visual. Clean up your mess, says Mother Nature. Now, this mess can be any kind of mess. It can be the garbage which you have littered all across. It can be the air pollution which you contribute to in the form of vehicles, in the form of burning of cattle stubble, in the case of burning of farm residues. And it's also very, very important for us to understand it can also pollute your underground water resources. As we all know, the groundwater table has already, receded. Now, when we are messing up with our own resources, there is no doubt that we will not be able to give Mother Earth in a form to our future generations that they thank us for it. We need to conserve the natural resources at all cost, such that we are able to live happily and peacefully. Therefore, this visual is a very powerful visual which says, clean up your mess, says Mother Earth. So, when you talk of the teaching learning methods which can be used, all these teaching learning methods which reference to creative expression, be it writing a poem, be it forming a jingle, be it a role play, be it a dance performance, the non-verbal mode, be it preparing a collage, working together for a collage on an environmental issue, or be it joining hands for a conservation efforts and writing slogans for it, preparing posters for it, going to the community, right? Going to the community and having a street play there where people look at that street play and you create environmental awareness through it. All these creative activities of creative expression, that is, go a long way. They are serving two purposes. On one hand, they are creating environmental awareness. On the other hand, these creative expressions are serving the development of skills such as critical thinking. They are taking care of the creativity of the child, and they are igniting the mind of the child for conservation efforts, for problem solving, for negotiating his or her space in his or her immediate environment. Therefore, holistically seeing, creative expressions is something which we as environmental science teachers need to engage our students in, such that they are not only engaged meaningfully, but they are engaged joyfully. They not only enjoy doing what they are doing, but also become sensitized with reference to conservation efforts. Any teacher of environmental science who engages his or her students in these creative expression exercises would surely be able to inculcate the healthy attitudes and values which are needed for conservation of environment and for creating Mother Earth, which is happy and healthy in the long run. Teaching learning of environmental science cannot be restricted to the textbook or the classroom. We cannot have lectures with reference to facts and figures which are there in the textbooks. It is a subject which is very composite in nature. It is a subject which is very lively. It is related to our immediate life, to our immediate sustenance. Therefore, all these creative expression activities will enable us to relate the child with the immediate environment and also make learning joyful, meaningful, and create a planet which is livable, create a planet which is something which we have left for the future generations to bless with. And above all, creative expressions make environmental science itself a very lively subject for students to engage in. Therefore, let us all join hands and learn that creative expressions can be used in environmental science to foster the critical thinking of children, the creativity of students, and making the subject itself more lively, more related to life, and thus joyful. Thank you very much. I hope each one of you is going to use these creative expressions for the teaching learning of environmental science, be it poetry, be it drama, be it dance, be it puppetry. The sky is the limit. Thank you very much.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो, धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने। हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर। शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा और परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।